This next story has been suppressed by mainstream media. Let's go to Andreas for more.
Everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Hello. Welcome to the Xirtus. Tune in for another exciting episode of wonder, imagination, and discovery.
Recent Tartarians.
Она образует всеобщие закономерности, определяющие законы классической физики для нашего
Sometimes I
мира.
look at the moon and just think, the skin's beautiful.
Baby, when I met you, there was peace unknown.
Что касается энергии наномер, то она превышает ядерную в немыслимое число раз. 10 в 74 степени.
That's it. That's it. That's it. With your arms now. That's it. That's it.
Thank you for watching Xirtus. Keep listening. Remember, if you enjoyed the video, please follow and subscribe and share and support. It really helps. Coming up next, Xirtus.
By the way, that's gone. If you didn't record that, that's gone forever. It's gone.
So I'm still adjusting to reality here, and I was supposed to play the 5-minute intro, but then I added the new intro yesterday, and that's what you know. What you get, what you get. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry.
Was that a new intro? Because I've
a new
never
intro.
seen it, and that
Yeah.
was like a peak drug moment. Good job. I mean, I was just like,
I want Jim to do all of like my poster reviews when it says like 2 thumbs in my ears or like peak drug experience, like couldn't find my mom in parking lot. Like that's what it should say. I appreciate it. Jim, welcome back to the show. We love you. This is like kind of a portmanteau, but I couldn't figure out how to join the words together quick enough. But it's Team Rabbit Hole, really, with some Neuropa combined. And it's my fault. We were supposed to do things 2 hours earlier, but my life has been kind of crazy. I want to show you some things, but first apologize to Martin, because Martin could have been here with us. And I feel like, he sat at like this dinner table that was like not quite made, like, or made it's worse because like if he had made the dinner table and he was waiting there, that'd be kind of like weird. But instead, it's like he came into the house where the party was supposed to be and nobody showed up for like 2 hours, and he was like waiting there. Like I was on time. I was even like 20 minutes late. Where's the Americans? I felt bad for Martin, but I wanted to show you guys a horrible thing that happened to my parents today. So this is what happens to all old people. And I try not to like think about it because it's like a Disney movie. Or Simpsons episode, but it's like you're like, yeah, like they send these guys and gals, these old boomer kids, these letters in the mail. Let me see if I can cover up the address that was my parents put onto the thing afterwards. But basically, the guy printed this, or he found this, and it looks like a very realistic AT&T envelope. I mean, it's not perfect and it's black and white, but they put their good American stamps on it to pay this thing, as if like AT&T is going to send you a bill that you have to self-address pay. First sign that there's a problem. Then this is what was on the inside, because you'll notice that the way that the bill's done is that you have to put a piece of paper with the information into the thing. So they figured out his address, or they just ran, because on the internet, it doesn't cost that much money. I can show you right now how to go online and buy thousands of or hundreds of thousands, or just download for free addresses that have been scraped off the internet and stolen through Cambridge Analytics, or a lot of people. I had friends from the Ukraine who lived in the United States whose job used to be back in 2012 to 2016 just to scrape data like this. Anyway, they send an email, they send a message, they send whatever. You probably won't respond. They send a letter. Your parents might be there. So then they send this letter, and then it says, hey, your account number, which isn't a real account number, but it seems like it might be based on one of his old phone numbers. I don't think it's real anymore, so I won't even hide it. But then here it's giving this address, right? And so this is the PO box of AT&T, right? Of course not. Of course that's not the PO box of AT&T. But that's what they're telling you. It says Carroll Stream, Illinois. Let's check out Carroll Stream, Illinois really quickly, just for the fun of it. Like, this is what anyone should do if they had enough time in their day. But boomers don't have that kind of time in their day, or they do. But they don't know what to do with that time because they just spent it working to pay bills. You know what I mean? So anyway, here's Carroll Stream, Illinois. Carroll Stream, Illinois looks like the before and after pictures of Detroit. Just, it's not AT&T's headquarters. In case you were wondering, these are meth heads.
They've gone green.
That are stealing from you, probably. And yeah, I don't know. Here's some cute neighborhoods. I'm not saying that this neighborhood's the meth head. But yeah, if you guys are looking for the P.O. box of, and if you're in Illinois and you find out AT&T 5025 P.O. box, Carroll Stream, Illinois, if anybody like works in Illinois and you want to like report a scammer who's robbing old people, please do. I think that would be a cool thing to do with your time. If you've got any free time whatsoever, trying to point out people that are robbing people that are innocent, I think. It's interesting, right? Because in a lot of ways, we're pretty open to good and evil, and I'm pretty confused about what's evil and good. But there's some things that stick out. You know what I mean? Like, if you rob an old person, is that ever cool? Like, I can't even imagine. I mean, even Scrooge McDuck, like, even in the episodes where they take his like penny, I feel bad for Scrooge, right?
Well, I mean, of course, it doesn't necessarily represent. I mean, luckily not represent the whole population, but have you ever seen these Indian scammer backhack videos?
Oh yeah,
some of them that are pretty popular. And then when it gets down to it and they start arguing, many of them actually say something along the lines of, well, you colonialized us, you raped our country and so on. We're just getting some of our money back from your pensions,
Right.
So,
which is not because they started out as carrying salt bags for them. Now all of a sudden they know how to do, what is it? The kings of scam are British. Like, if you've watched all the documentaries, it's the British who really invented this kind of scamming.
Yeah, I mean, who invented fractional reserve banking?
Right. So, well, I mean, I'll give the Danes a little credit. Copenhagen's favorite banking firm, Rothschilds and Sons. But also, to be fair, if you look at the world in general, like, the trading of anything is it's designed in order that people will create a bunch of people will die. Boomers will die in Vietnam, and then the ones that survive are the ones that work. So they get so used to just, okay, well, I must pay. I mean, there's an old German expression, the right to pay. You have the right to pay. You don't have the right to almost anything else. And I think that's what's happened to a lot of these people. They're worried they're going to lose their connection to society. They're worried they're going to, and it's constantly like you've made, the entire generation was, I was looking at this cassette player recorder, is like, must have cost thousands of dollars in the 90s and 80s. And it eventually, the rubber band melts that moves the tape because it's rubber. And so all of a sudden, this whole thing is broken because of a rubber band. That is like the whole world. That is their whole generation. That's everything about it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, with that intro, you had your face superimposed, obviously, kind of on stuff. It's like, should we be surprised that this goes all the which way? Like, it's an age of deception, right? I mean, it's fun to do for intros and stuff. That's like positive spin or whatever. But yeah, no, I'm hanging out with Manana here, and she's always getting scam emails, and I'm just like,
oh my
let
God,
me vet it for you. But then at the same time, I mean, at some point, discernment is going to be more and more problematic. I just saw an image on Reddit that was like, these are not 3 real women. These are AI generated women. And it was like 3 hotties, like triplets or something. And I was just like,
oh yeah,
well, I couldn't have told you that was not real. So it's a weird moment. I don't know. The thought, this is such a throwback and it doesn't matter. But when you were saying, oh my God, Martin was waiting for us.
Check out this realistic Mexican family I made.
You made that?
Yeah, this is actually a piñata of a Mexican family.
That looks like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre family photo.
This is a piñata of a family holding a piñata. That's different. But, some of them turned out okay. This one really, I like that one a lot.
That's realistic.
This is my favorite. This is the one that's almost a painting. You're like, whoa, that's not real. It's too real, man. That's like one of those like wax figures. This is so much personality.
Do you know if there's any publicly available counter AI art checking
Oh yeah,
algorithm
for
already?
sure. So I use it all the time. AI. What was it? Checker. What's the term? What was it called? Um, uh, article. I just used this the other day. Um, article checker.
There it says
Man,
AI content detector. Is not that?
yeah, AI
It's right
content.
there. It's right there on the search results. I mean, I'm just reading off the
No,
screen.
but I had a really good one. No, what did I just use the other day? I'll have to find it. What I was using the other day. But if you put in some of these things, no wait, AI.
But basically, eventually, we're all gonna have browser plugins, which will then, just show a logo or something like this is AI, this is AI. No,
I forget the name of it, but there's one I was using that Meta makes, and it checks like 6 different things. It's not for AI; it's for photoshopping in general, or like article, like degradation, compression. I can't remember the word right now, but I was just using it the other day because we were looking at the Damar Hamlin video, and the Damar Hamlin video, 3 of the article checkers, compression error checkers, were like 98% sure that the video was doctored in some way or faked. And so that was really interesting because 2 of them weren't. 2 of them, which were the most mainstream ones, said like 100% sure that it was real. And the others said like 100% sure it was not real and 30% sure that it could be real, possibly. Was another one that had. So there's been a number of these different. You can find probably like 6 or 7 of them. There's a Russian one as well that will find compression artifacts. That's what I think it is.
Well, then it turns into trusting levels of authority. It's like, how do you know? Hey, if it says I'm an official bot that checks things, is it not too dissimilar from the AT&T logo?
Try photo forensics, I think, is one of the ones. Photo forensics will tell you from several different sources as well.
But the sourcing, like in terms of it's like watermarking, is it doing a kind of blockchain method where it's like multi-nodal networking fact checking, or how is it? What's the hierarchy of data and who's, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're doing that, you're like, oh, I'm going to search this, and you're trusting the website, but
you're simply running it through an algorithm, and the website that Andreas probably showed just throws up different algorithms at the same time, and you still have to judge for yourself, of course, so.
Is this the real life? It's fucking crazy out here. I don't even know what to think. I don't even watch the news anymore. I mean, you start referencing like what's going on in the world. I'm like, oh,
there it is. Deepware AI. So this is the one that I found that I really liked. Deepware AI. So you go to scanners, for instance, and you can put in a video right here. If you've got an example of an AI video, I don't know. Let's say
your own deepfake video. Oh, it's not an AI video, but
yeah, but it'll work the same way. Like let's say like I'll type in Antarctica or something like that. Boom, and then just
sorry, this video is 70% CGI.
Right, exactly. And so, but it's 10 minutes long, so we'll do. If it's too long of a video, it won't do it. But if you got like a 90-minute video or 90-second, video, what it'll do is it'll scan it from 4 different AI, and maybe 6 different AI engines, and then it'll tell you where the pixels start to go wrong, where obviously the lighting is changed and where the sound is changed and whatever. And so it tells you where things are doctored and edited. So you can do that with photos really quickly, and you'd be surprised how many people are going through Instagram and someone's butt doesn't really look like that. Or maybe they've got just the mud flood. I saw some videos where people are like running and they've got like CGI of a shark chasing them or something like that. I mean, it's not real, but it starts to look more and more real to people. And I think it's like you said, Raph, we're living in this age of illusion. Or did Jim say that? Jim, you might have said that. But we are living in this age of illusion.
Freddie Mercury shit. I didn't say anything like that.
We're living in an age of illusion. Maybe no one said that. Maybe I said it and it was ventriloquism. Maybe I just made it up.
What do you think about some of these? Because I haven't really gone down hard the rabbit hole of Tartaria like y'all. But I've seen enough images where I'm like, that looks like some botched AI work. Is this flooding your community? How is this working for you?
So luckily, we don't have a lot of AI Tartaria stuff. What we do have is a lot of old Photoshop-esque. So like airbrushing is the thing. And a lot of people for years, like John Levi was pointing out, I was like, look at this photo. Biggs does this with Aqua, with the viaducts. We're looking at all these areas where essentially you've got a double exposure because you can't really expose for two places at once. But you can is the thing. Like, and especially in the 1800s, you could do two exposures to put photos together. But what they do is they basically remove all of the sky, or they'll only show one aspect, and they'll take photos a certain way that it's clear that they're hiding what was going on, or trying to make something look brand new, or turn it into, like, use the photo to make it look like they're the best renderer in history, which is like interesting. They weren't even really they started with a photo, but they couldn't finish the chemicals, so they started using drawing to fill in the photo. I mean, for the most part, though, I don't think people are making I haven't seen too many fake Tartaria. I guess some people probably do, though. There's probably a lot of stuff. There was a photo a while ago that was showing, giants that were not real. But then there's, at the same time, whenever there's something that's not real, there's like thousands of real things. Like they found the museum of all these giant bones in California, right? Let me see if I can find the giant.
Well, this gets into like real and true are different things. Like something can be very real at this point, realistic, right? Whereas is it sound and actionable? Like Raphael's presuppositions are a little different, where he's like, in any one multiverse, maybe it is true or something. So it gets
this is real, and then this is weirder than the fake pictures we saw. So there was a picture, I can't even find it, but there's like a picture of a dude with like a 100-foot skeleton, right? But this is weirder because here's a room that's 100 feet wide filled with skeletons, and it's the Museum of Giant Bones in California. Talking about the Native Americans, and their bones were eventually given back to the Native Americans because they were stolen, right? So they shut this museum down. But this was a West Coast thing. And then we've talked about this before, but also, humans next to whales, right? Like the idea of whale skeletons you look at a whale skeleton, it's got fingers and toes. A lot of the time, that's pretty strange. You connect the concepts of giants and you say, okay, well, I don't need to Photoshop it. But sometimes Photoshopping it makes it easier for people to imagine or understand.
Yeah, it's conceptual art or whatever. So they're like, ooh,
right.
Here, check it out. Here's an imagining.
Right. Yeah. Man. But I don't know. I mean, that's the other thing. It makes me kind of wonder, because if you're like living on meth in Illinois and you're sending these senility letters,
2 dragons in your yard.
Right. Yeah, there's 2 dragons in your yard thing. I was like, oh, they're so into the occult. They don't even realize it, and they know they are. I mean, maybe they're doing it because they need to survive, or how well are they surviving because of this? Like, if this is a lifestyle, like, how do you
even if 1,000 people fucking answer? I mean, that's income, steady income.
Yeah.
That's a meth bathtub or whatever they do. I don't know what they're up to.
Meth bathtub. That's a metric number, I think. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me that that's like an entire functional part of society. And it's also weird to me that humans have evolved in order to like live in this predatorial water hole. Right? The water hole idea that they don't really kill each other at the water hole. It seems kind of interesting that there's not a lot of murdering in the water hole. They murder outside the water hole. Like, how is that the unsaid thing? Seems strange to me.
Yeah, that gets into like, I don't know, how cognizant of like contamination are they? Because animals don't shit where they eat, kind of thing. So it's like, maybe they're just like, look, this will turn into a carcass, and there ain't a whole lot of water around here. So let's murk them over there or whatever. I don't know what they're really thinking, clearly.
Yeah, this
what
giraffe
is
is like, I ain't no fool.
I've never even thought of it to ask you.
I'm against it. No, I'm just kidding. Like,
well,
what?
I mean, there's multiple levels.
I don't think anyone should change. No, I think evolution is like every moment, every day, we're always evolving. And my theory of evolution isn't my own. It's Teilhard Chardin's. So
yeah.
I believe that a new sphere starts it, or rather the omega point starts the alpha point, but new sphere is what leads to geodes, and then biosphere, and then out of biosphere is back to new sphere. So consciousness evolves constantly, and throughout your life, your choices, along with other people's choices, show that you're made up of, you're a bus of organisms, which are a confederation of different parasites, which are parts of cells, stardust, right? So you're all these different things, and so are everybody. And we're together, this political body, and the political body is the new sphere as well. So atoms socialize in order to become stardust, but not just dust, like geodes, jade, diamonds, graphene, like these structures that atoms make and socialize into are really phenomenal cathedral like quality. And from there, we evolved to create alchemy, and alchemy is essentially producing more than you started with, which is worship or evolution, I believe. So Teilhard Chardin defined evolution as worship, or worship as evolution, and I think that that's kind of the way to go about it. Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Was his model okay? Yeah. See, I know he's a Catholic dude or whatever.
He was a Catholic dude.
When I was eating a lot of acid, I was way down with this, and I could have argued it was very McKenna stuffs.
Right, yeah. McKenna definitely read Chardin. Yeah.
Totally. I've heard him quote it. My wondering though is, was he thinking that it was like bootstrapping? Like, was how would I put this? Was his thought that things were like in almost was it PK Dick? I forget who. No, I think it was the other guy.
Burroughs.
No, he's from your town. There's a street named after him.
Oh, Robert Anton Wilson.
Yeah.
No.
He was all about, I think, things coming into awareness at a certain level. I'm totally having a mental car crash here. It's not even, I can't even blame Mercury.
Birthday was like a couple weeks ago. His death day is coming up in a couple weeks, actually. The 7th. I remember his funeral was around my birthday, 17th or 18th was his funeral. And I remember going to his funeral, and I was crazy because I was like, wow. And similar to David, didn't know he was like very approachable, but he was a very approachable man. Apparently, you could just go to his house and talk to him. And, he lived.
Take your AT&T bills to him, guys.
He lived really close to Anton LaVey. LaVey, when Anton LaVey lived in Capitola, but he lived in Live Oak, so it was like 20 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on how you look at it. But Robert Anton Wilson, sorry, what was the thing you were bringing up about his theory?
I'm wondering if they saw things as like
I think most people
playing out, or does it jump to spirit? Like, is it a transubstant? Like, does it actually change gears completely? Like, oh look, we're little white blood cells, and now we have something in the prefrontal cortex cockpit or whatever. I know that's a materialistic thing.
No, that's a good way to put it. A week ago on Twitter, someone asked me that, or they asked everybody, and I just had to Yelp my review in, that they were saying, who was your red pill? What was your first red pill? And I was like, Robert Anton Wilson. And they're like, that's a really old red pill. I'm like, well, it isn't actually, now that you say that, because Robert Anton Wilson, he was really deep into the Chardinian studies as well. Every one of these guys was into Teilhard Chardin. And the idea that we could start as spirit makes more sense. And this was a major argument between Blavatsky and Darwin, for instance. There's actually a number of more famous evolutionary theorists from the 20th century that talk about spirit in different ways. They try to move away from the word spirit, and even Hegelian dialectic works with spirit. It just calls it Geist, right? So we've got the Zeitgeist is the spirit of the time, and Hegel Geist is comes back to this idea of spirit. It's just that spirit becomes so confusing because you have alchemists that are arguing, what is spirit? What is ether? Are they physical things? And that might seem like a stupid question.
Is that a Neon Evangelion shout out image?
Yeah. I mean, the Evangelion.
That's the Omega point, though. Really, that's the apotheosis. I mean, if you've seen it.
If you end up becoming God's angels, if you're so good at choice, you choose to do the right thing all the time, perfectly. Right.
Well, the whole show could be like whatever, the lining of your intestines, I guess, and white blood cells fighting the day or whatever, and then all of a sudden they pop up to organisms.
Oh, interesting. I never took it to the Johnny Osmosis place, but I really like where you're going with that too. Yeah,
I am suggesting to do it. It's there. I'm glad that somebody made that. See, things like that make me happy to have the internet. It's
right.
I mean, it's the best in the worst times. Clearly, AT&T.
Hegel is Pac-Man is the other thing. Really, if you think about it, like he's a multi-dimensional Pac-Man, but so are you and I. We all are this kind of Pac-Man that's being chased by our own Geist. And this idea of what is spirit is really important, because if spirit is anything at all, people used to argue how many angels could dance on the head of a pin. You know, they used to like kill each other and go to Parliament and be like 10,000, 10,000, 30,000 to death with your wife, you know. And then acid was invented. And I think the question became more relevant. I think the same thing is going on with this phenomenology of spirit, because even looking at light, right? Does light explode a new particle? Is light traveling, or is it new light being created in repetition like dominoes? Right?
Right. I mean, it gets quickly to like, do you think everything is already spirit and it's playing matter? I think that's Raphael. I don't want to speak for Raphael, but that's the gist I got largely from him and people like Thomas Sakowicz and stuff like that, where it's like, we're spirit involuting into matter. And
you know, what is the medium the light is traveling on, of course, you know?
The darkness, the void, they would say, right? But who knows? See, this gets into authority really quick. I believe this because they told me. Bill Nye the Science Guy told me, or whatever. So it's like, all right, how does this all work? I hope at some point we do really pop through in some. I mean, that's what gnosis is, right? At some point you can kind of pop through, and we realize at a higher degree what's going on. But I don't know if that would change our functionality in the thing. Oh, that was a Dark Side of the Moon thing. My brother had that liner. The green.
I was trying to find the Dark Side of the Moon poster. It's both sides. Because if you look at both sides of the album, it's above and below, right? I don't know where it is now. Here, like, see, one side is one. Yeah, there it is, right there. This is what it looks like if you really were to take the album art apart and look on both sides.
That's Chardin right there, folks.
And then as above, so below.
There it is, the Omega Point.
And it's funny because I had this like giant 10-foot or 8-foot like Pink Floyd poster when I was growing up that I got in the Capitola Beach because it was like nobody wanted it that moment or something, so it was super cheap. But I put it upside down because I just thought like it just seems better because I don't want it to be, you know, I don't know why, but it just felt right that it was upside down. But I like this even better, and I want to get one of these because something about that oval, the Matrix, the
Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Don't go through the whole guy from Jurassic Park. I can't remember his name.
It's also interesting because you've got as above and so below. You kind of consider masculinity and femininity, but is it? Because then all of a sudden, aren't they parts of the dynamic? And then what is this oval? That oval seems more like femininity. That it seems like that neutrality is femininity, but maybe I'm missing something there. Maybe it's the neutrality that's being produced from masculinity and femininity. But then it's interesting because it's not on one side or the other. That vagina is in between them both. You know what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? All right.
Yeah.
If it wasn't clear. The dodo is the poster child for the human cause extinction. Scientists want to bring it back. Bringing back the dodo is a lot less scary than the mastodon. Let's start here. What do you think?
I mean, I don't even know what to think about these things anymore. You got to think there's some people in China doing it for fun already.
What the heck is a dodo bird? Let's start with that. A dodo bird is this giant, terrifying thing that's like 4 feet tall. I think it's like 2 to 4 feet tall. It can grow to be pretty big. It's horrifying, and it can kill people. It doesn't because it's extinct. And at the time, most humans were used to killing much worse things, so they just wipe them all out. But this is essentially, you know, a bird is technically a dinosaur. So if you bring back dodo birds, what you bring back are dinosaurs, right? So this is the beginning of Jurassic Park. Am I exaggerating, or do you think we should be more afraid of this? I mean, everyone, look, have you ever seen a dodo bird? Why do we decide they're so cute? Disney movies?
It reminds me of that blue crested thing from New Zealand. I forget what it's called. That will gut you.
Ooh.
You know what I'm talking about? It's
the moa?
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah,
I say
bird.
yes as though I know.
Well, I know
dinosaurs never left. I mean, they're the birds. That's what you're saying. Now we're just kind of skipping around on that fucking chart of Chardins, and that may or may not have dire consequences. I mean, you nailed it. That's the whole point of Jurassic Park. What happens when things separated by loads of time interact? Je ne sais pas. Like, I guess we have to find out. But those books aren't as good the second time around. I read them to my ex-fiance. And I was like, well, it's okay. I loved it in 4th grade. But it kind of didn't age as well. Big Bird, there he is.
Pyridane Chronicles. Have you ever read that? Is that how you spell that? I can't spell. Pyridane. Pridane, whatever. Prydian? Pridane?
Pridane. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Have you read this before? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
So check this out. This is what was Harry Potter in the 60s, back when the 60s, because they were based the 60s. You have to understand. Like Korean War's going on and stuff, and they're about to go to Vietnam. These kids are being set up to go into battle in places that they're going to just drop them off with plastic helicopters and plastic boats and just, machine guns, right? But this series of books ended up being the Black Cauldron. You've seen the Black Cauldron.
I haven't, but I'm aware of it culturally.
Oh, really? Well, the Black Cauldron can never be destroyed. He's got this wishing pig.
That's some
right
He-Man
here.
shit. Meets Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Yeah. So this little bit's from 20 years before He-Man, right? Because He-Man, the whole He-Man made up thing. How about all that?
No, but I don't want to digress you too much.
Oh,
Focus on the Black Cauldron.
No, now we're doing that for a second.
I see so many of those archetypes from like all the. They must have had similar animators or something, because I saw a fatter version of the thin witch. She wasn't thin, but the witch from Sword in the Stone. They could have been related, those animations.
What's his name? Lou Scheimer made Filmation. Filmation made a bunch of really great West Coast animation, etc. But at one point, they were Mattel was trying to make a boys doll, and they were like, "We can't do that anymore. We're gonna do action figures because no one wants dolls." And then they asked the boys what they wanted to play with, and they got them to play with a bunch of stuff. And the kids were like really into these things, and they're like, "Okay, power. Kids want power. We're gonna give them the power." And then they created this He-Man thing. And they're like, well, we could buy the rights to Star Wars, but it's like $4 million. We could buy the rights to Conan the Barbarian, but that's a lot of money. Why don't we just make something up? So they completely made this up. They're like, well, it's called He-Man. And they're like, well, who's going to want to buy a toy without a backstory? Like, oh, but it's going to come with a comic book. And then they're like, really? When did you come up with that? And as he's walking on the meeting, he's like, just now. And then later on, they're like, oh, well, but the kids won't be able to read the comic books. Well, that's just to get them ready for the cartoon. And then he's like, when did you come up with the cartoon? Just now. And he went and he like created it on a phone call, like instantly. So it was just people left to their own. And they're like, we are fighting the Japanese intellectually, making cartoons right now. So Lou Scheimer just created the craziest and had no oversight really, and just created He-Man. And that's why it's so insane, because every step along the way, it's just dudes playing with dolls, and they came up with their own stories like Legos. It's brilliant. But
I've actually never seen He-Man either. I'm really fucking picky with my culture. You'd be surprised. No, the lady in the back right with the cleavage. She looks a lot like the Mad Madam Mim or whatever.
You see what's going on here. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So that was a very astute observation. So this cartoon was illustrated at the time Walt Disney was dead, and the person in charge was Don Bluth.
Mm-hmm.
Don Bluth used to ride his white horse across the desert. He was a Mormon growing up, and he eventually became the greatest.
Like the crypt keeper there, just for the record.
He's like 100 bazillion years old because he doesn't drink or smoke or anything. He's raised Mormon, but he made all of the coolest animations for Disney. He made also after Disney things like Fievel Goes West.
Yeah, American Tail.
But
this is the dinosaur one too.
Right. So what started out though was that he was working for Disney and he was doing Black Cauldron, and then they said, "Hey, this is way too nuts. Like what you're doing right here is terrifying." And he was like, "But it's a family cartoon. It's supposed to have some scary moments in it, but it's all going to be okay." Like, no, we got to cut this out. Like, you got to edit that out. Like, you can't just edit a cartoon. Like, it's all planned, and we're doing like, no, I'll show you. And then the guy comes in and he cuts the film and just like remove some scene. Like this part, not going to be the part where the pig gets picked up by the dragon. Nope, too scary. Cut that out. And he's like, screw that. So he quit. Right. And I've got a couple interviews with people like Tad Stone from Disney who talk about like other aspects of the backstory, because they were already starting to secretly work on another animation company of their own. But then they ended up leaving Disney essentially and starting the Don Bluth company. But the last project he worked on for Disney was this one. So it's like super dark, super intense. And it was the one that they were really excited about because Chronicles of Prydain were the books that they read when they were younger, so it was a big popular thing 20 years earlier. And they figured,
looking at his chart, I'm like, what is he? Jupiter and Capricorn. He's a businessman. Of course, he has a grand Earth trine. Of course, he's like, fuck, I do what I want.
Yeah, what's his thing? What's his tell us about it?
Oh, it's just Sun and Virgo conjunct Mercury and Neptune. I mean, his drawings are visually, it's fantasy, but it's like articulated fantasy. It's not just like watercolor. It's very kind of concretized, if you want to put it that way. Jupiter, which is expansion luck in Capricorn. He was going to kick ass and take names.
His women are always so beautiful and like sexual in these like, you know, curvaceous ways and everything. Like he
was probably checking out Frank Franzetta or whatever the guy's name is. His art, not that it looks like this. Is that Kirby? Hell yeah.
Yeah, he does everything, man. I mean,
was Kirby edited into that, or was that in the thing?
I think there's a later thing that has Kirby in the level, the video game where he meets the character from, what's it called? Rocket, Space Age. You know, because Space Age, he's got Dragon's Lair and Space Age. And there's the first video games that are animated, so you have to click left or right in the right moment, or else the wrong animation will
I remember seeing videos of that, yeah, and like like sword fighting or whatever. I know what you're talking like arcade game. I think there was a movie about it, kids playing it. Anyway, this shit is darker. I mean, that's the whole point. It was edgy and
super edgy, super
insane, but it was good.
Yeah, but super sexy too. Save me. Prince, save me! Like just completely out of control. How ridiculous it was. But the idea was that they were going to make
glitter.
Yeah, Black Cauldron is the Disney version of the Chronicles of Pride, and he has taken out a lot of the darkest stuff, but the dark stuff that matters is still there. For instance, there's a Black Cauldron, and in the Black Cauldron, if you throw a dead body, then all of or is it a live body? If you sacrifice somebody, I forget how it works, then all these dead bodies around will start to rise up and become soldiers, and they'll rise up for whoever does it. And the person who's really into it's the Horned King, but you could do it too. However, the only way to churn off the dead soldiers is to sacrifice a living person, that's for sure, into the cauldron. So they have to sacrifice life, death, blood, everything. And then those
horned evil men.
Right.
Some archetypal resonators.
And those women, though, those are the 3 witch sisters that tell you the prophecy. Yeah, the fates. Right, exactly. So it's, of course. And they're pretty interesting. But again, this is the Disney version. And I think they did a great job. Like, this is a Disney movie. But if you look at the book, it's even weirder, darker. You've got a guy who cuts off his magical finger, puts all of his magic in his finger, puts it in a drawer. The kid sews the finger onto his hand, has 6 fingers now. 6-fingered man's more magical because he's stolen this other guy's magic. Bottomless pit from Tartarus that feeds apples. All these weird things are going on in this thing. It's very dark, and it was the 60s, so it's weird because it's kind of disappeared. People don't talk about this anymore. And I wonder if that's going to happen with Harry Potter or something at some point, or Lord of the Rings. They're going to be like, oh, that was really dark. It was like super Christian, or so we don't let people look at it anymore. Something to that effect.
Cultural editing or whatever.
What's up? How's it going?
Yeah.
Aloha.
Which one are you? Ancient Historia. Good to see you.
How you doing? Like honestly, man, I've wanted to meet you for so long, and Raphael said that I could come on the stream.
I'm stoked. I'm stoked. Tell us a bit about the content that you do. I mean, I can tell by the name Ancient Historia, you're probably into the same stuff we are.
Well, yeah, you know what? Honestly, I don't even know how I'm here. Like, I wanted to research all this stuff, and I just found it easier to document my own research, like, for other people, because, like, I'm one of these people where I'm a scatterbrain, so I'll research a million things at once. So, like, I thought if I make a video, I can really, like, focus on one topic at a time, and then next thing I know, load of subscribers. So
nice. Let me go to your YouTube channel, Ancient Historia.
Are you hailing from the British Isles?
Yes, I am. Manchester.
All right.
Oh, of course. So maybe you want to walk us through some of the content you put on this most recent video or something. Show us like a taste of this
well,
stuff.
I mean, yeah, like I say, I started off doing World's Fairs, and then I decided to get into Tartaria, and obviously you must know how much of a wormhole that is to get into. And then I just started focusing on Tartaria because I found that like most information it's all over the place. You have to watch like loads of videos to get all that information. Do you know what I mean? Like there's little nuggets in each video. There's like all the same stuff, but then there'll be like one little piece somewhere here or there. And I just wanted to be the guy to bring all that together,
Nice.
That was all it was, really.
Yeah, I've been looking at the the videos. I'm making a new video with David Ewing Jr. right now, and some of the things that have been coming up is Africa, and it's one of the ones that's the most interesting to me. Is the best research, of course, is being done by like Hotepu's Jesus or somebody, example. But if you look into what's it called, Our History? Is that the name of the channel? I forget. There's a couple great channels that I've seen on Black history, and they tend to say like this is for Black people, this is not for everybody else necessarily. And I get that, because it's like you make a channel, you don't want to feel like you have to appeal to the world. But what's interesting is how much it's all tied together, and this into Africa, this out of Africa thing going on. I mean, we think of it like pre-Columbia, post-Columbus. This isn't really a realistic thing, because there's a triangular trade network that's going on with the Barbers and the Sephards.
There's one.
Before
There's a video on my channel that isn't by me. I've completely stolen it because it was beautiful. It's by a dude called Akala, who's a British guy, and he was the only reason I was going into it is because I was researching pre-Columbus crossings, and he goes all into like the Mali kings and stuff like that. The people that apparently set sail, like I think it's Abu Bakari, who set sail with 800 ships to America, and that's way before Columbus. And this is the guy, absolutely brilliant. Some of the stuff that this guy talks about.
Let me see if I can find the name. This guy here, Robin Walker, had a really he's got a bunch of interesting conversations going on. There's so many Timbuktu manuscripts, and we were under the impression that they'd been destroyed, but of course it hadn't been. A lot of them had been hidden for centuries since the Songhay Empire, because of the fears that they would be destroyed if they end up in the wrong hands. And so just recently a number of them started to be digitized, and he's in the process of trying to digitize them while keeping the original secret, but like of course they're photocopies, and we can do artifact checking to make sure they're real. I don't see why this would be particularly faked, but
are there going to be AT&T bills from Timbuktu?
But you know what David would say? He'd say they're all fake.
Well, yeah. I mean, probably. The thing is,
I just had a chat with David last night. Actually, we just did a video. So
cool.
That'll be up soon. Yeah.
Epic. But, yeah.
What I was going to say, this connects actually, because I noticed. I mean, you must have come across Prester John in your Tartaria research at some point. Yeah, so if you see Tenduk on maps, usually that'll have some kind of indication that'll say something about Prester John. And then as you'll see, he's listed as being Prester John of Africa. And it even says that on the maps written, this is where Prester John of Africa suppressed the people, saying that he brought Rome to the people and he was from Africa. And obviously Prester John is supposed to be king of Ethiopia and stuff like that. So that's a very interesting connection between, Tartaria and Africa.
Right. Yeah, and the Berber Wars.
Well, yeah.
The more looking at this idea that everybody had built these. I mean, so it's interesting because you've got all different kinds of people. You've got Celts, you've got Sephards, you've got Africans, whatever that really means, because you've got Black people from all over the world then. People that are indigenous to the Western Hemisphere that are Black. And you also have white people, like, because Celts are 40% of the DNA in South America now. So we can't be sure if there's been trade with the Arcadians going back that far, and the Normans were Celts as well.
Well, when you say Celts, like that will get you into a lot of arguments in Britain, because there's a lot of to do with the C, as in Celts with C-E-L-T, basically don't exist. Yeah. So the real Celts actually come from North Italy. Which is spelled Q-U-E-Elts, I think. So like the Celts, right? So the Celts from Britain are a bit of a fabrication to cover up the ancient British people that lived here before.
The Picts, right?
But the Picts are the part of it, but we're talking about the ancient Welsh. Like, so the ancient Welsh were the real kings. We're talking like King Arthur, King Myrig, even going back to the Roman Empire. So the first King Arthur, because there was two in the Welsh, a few of them because they like to use the name, but the first one,
they were not Picts. The old Welsh weren't Picts.
No. They well, in fact, this is where a big connection comes through. So if you look at the way Picts look, and then search up a guy called Gog Magog, right?
Mhm.
Gog Magog is in legend supposed to be the last giants, because
Right.
in Welsh folklore will tell you that giants once ruled Britain, and Gog Magog is supposed to be the last one who was killed by Brutus, I think, in legend. Now, if you look at him, he obviously looks like a typical Pict, but the Picts are essentially Tartarians, right? Ginger hair, tall giants. It's the standard story that you even see in America. So that's basically, they're the same tribes you're seeing in America, the ginger hair, tall people, and they've had wars with the traditional kings of Britain.
There's also a thing with blue skin dyeing. So in Africa, there's a number of tribes that wear certain dyes that make their skin blue, and then the Celts used to wear blue skin. It seems like maybe the Picts did as well. Do you think the old Welsh had a blue skin thing?
I'm not sure about the old Welsh, but the one thing I would say is that David seems to be quite correct in that the old Welsh are looking quite Muslim. The more I research, because I just came across recently, you might not know this, but in the 8th century, they found coins in Britain from a king called King Offa, who was king of Mercia, which is basically northwest England down to about the Midlands. It's a big portion of England, but these coins are Islamic. They have Arabic writing on them, and they say Allah is the only God. And if you look up medieval British coins, they're dating in these random coins saying Allah is the only God. Literally, yeah. If you look Arabic British coins, these will show you, and these have been found in Britain. So one connection I found was that on one of these maps about Tartaria, they spoke about the Kazakh Tatars having a war with the Muslim Ismail 700 years. No, it was 900. 900 years prior to the map, which made it 700 AD. So the map was about 500. So Ishmael the Muslim, that would seem like it's referring to the prophet Ishmael, but it turns out Arthur, actually, because Arthur was called, the second Arthur was called Arthmael, he had a son called Ithael, or Ithmael. So Ithmael, Ishmael, and that's one connection, that possibly the Kazakh Tatars were having a fight with Ithmael the Muslim, who would be the son of Arthmael.
Thur is actually supposed to be Tar-Tur as well, so it's supposed to be the father, and so Arthur actually refers to father. Uthar also.
Yes, Uther Pendragon. Yeah. So that was a title. So Uther Pendragon was the title. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry, Uther Pendragon was just like a title that was given to the general. So like, you were the king in charge, and your son usually would be the Pendragon, the Uther Pendragon.
Yeah. Do you know what Pendragon should mean? Pen of dragon, maybe Vaughn might be Vaughn dragon of dragon. It's weird. Some of these old something that David and we were talking about earlier, obviously, is the that letter. What the heck is it called? You know, what's that called?
Yeah, the is it pronounced I?
Is an alpha. How am I supposed to? I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce it. It's what I find fun is it's connected to the Odal rune, which is hilarious in a way, But it's also the development. It's an I and a man. Pretty strange. But this symbol, there was a confusion between A and E for a lot because there's vowels didn't exist in certain scripts, and B and P and V and all these other things. So Europe and Arab, for instance, or
yeah. David is saying about this, like Arabia, Europia.
Right, your Arabia, Europia, exactly. What do you think about that? This is like the Crusades, they divided it culturally.
Well, the E to A example is the best one. Is England. So England today is known as Engleland. Now, if you go back to Saxon, that quite literally means land of the angels. But where does that come from? It's from Anglia. Right? Because obviously, if you look at any other language, they still refer it as to like Angleterre, right? So we are the A, and that in that sense, and that actually goes back to Albion. Once again, bringing back the giants, the original. So Albion, there's two Albions. One in folklore, he was actually a giant, like a Bible giant, and his corpse became the entire island. The other Albion is the Assyrian Albion, who migrated to Britain in about 15 to 1600 BC, and that's where the country got its name, Albion. So if you've ever heard Albion with
it's also a geologic timescale age, which is hilarious, by the way. How do I spell Albion?
Yeah. Well, they say the age of Albion, like things like that. So yeah, it's very interesting because, like, say if you change that, that would be Albion. And if you look at these coins that you say with the Ella, I am really starting to see that change, and I do kind of agree with that.
Albion. That's amazing. I don't know. I never heard that. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah. So that again, the Assyrian king, he left Assyria and fucked off to Britain and said, "I'm taking it," and they apparently named the land after him. So take with that what you want.
Lucky guy. I don't know. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the name stuck around for quite a while, and then it's gone down into like Anglia, Angleterre, etc. So if you take that name, by the way, that E to A, it quite literally is Angle Land, Angel Land. Now, angels in the sense of, angels is one thing, but what do we know about angels from the Bible? That they mated with the daughters of man to create Nephilim. So by it being land of the angels, it might be land of the giants, which again, I found Anglo-Saxon poetry, which refers to a comet, going into so much, but there's a comet that destroyed Britain in 562, and there's Anglo-Saxon poetry that quite specifically talks of, says the buildings of giants were left in ruins, and they call it the walls and the gates of giants, and it's quite specific. So it's really interesting to get into.
Shameful gave a super chat and says Hyperborea could be where the Celtic Namir and the Nordic Aesir from the Pantheon name, and there you have it.
Well, basically, the Celts with the C, I don't want to be like outright and say it, but they're made up. So the real Celts are the Italian Celts with the Q. They've become the Celts. So the reason that Celts have been invented is because we have real ancient British people that lived in Britain beforehand. Now, if you look at official history, it'll tell you that the Romans ruled here for a bit. Then when the Roman Empire collapsed, Britain was just a shithole until the Normans turned up and saved the day and started actually doing stuff. But that's not.
In other words, there's like a collapse, a bringing in of a slave state, and then a beginning of a reset. Yeah.
Well, yeah. It literally is kind of that example. So, like, I was going into it, and if you look at the Roman.
Are you wearing a pug on your shirt? That's so based. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh yeah, for real. You know what though? This is such a fucked up thought, but I've had this jumper for ages, and I put it on, and I thought, I bet he's died by now. And I was like, I'm basically wearing a memorial, like.
That's pretty based, man.
Yeah, pretty dark. But just going.
I was just thinking, you're not a member of the Order of the Pug by any chance, are you? The Catholic Masonic organization.
How do you know about the order? No, but so going back to this weird connection. So when the Roman Empire fell, I've only just noticed this today when I was doing some research. So when the Roman Empire fell, you'll notice that it's a German guy that. A German, what is it? Odoacer or something like that. So it's basically Otto Acer or something. But he was the guy that led the rebellion against the Romans in 476 AD or something, 475, and that collapsed the Roman Empire. Well, if you look at Attila the Hun's empire, that he died in 453 AD, and he's just north. And it says one of his generals took over and led a Germanic revolt. So we're looking at a Germanic revolt that stopped the Hun Empire at exactly the same time as a Germanic revolt that stopped the Roman Empire. And I just found that very coincidental that these two events happened simultaneously right in the same area. But no one blinks an eye. Like, what were the Germans in two empires? Were they cheating on an empire with another empire?
So there's a whole story here we have to tie together at some point, and I haven't done the research, so I'll have to save it. Probably.
Well, I can tell you about this. So where the barbarians actually come from, where they come from. If you go back to,
before you do, just also keep in mind, I want to know about the time that they invaded Rome for 3 days and left. But yeah, keep going.
Right. So this is the thing, right? So if you want to talk about the invasions, when emperors in Rome fight each other and win, right? One wins and you go, okay, he's the new emperor. But when Attila comes in and fights everyone and wins, you go, oh, he was just an invader for 3 days. He wasn't the emperor. He beat everyone. He killed all the kings. He took over all the cities. He didn't quite get in the cities, but he basically took over everything. But he wasn't the emperor. So that's
he could have gotten the cities. He waited there and he made a treaty. Yeah. for
Well,
3
yeah,
days.
yeah, exactly. So he's the emperor, right? So
Yeah.
he was the emperor of the areas. That's what they don't want to say, is that he took over, he was the emperor,
Absolutely.
then a Germanic revolt happened, and the whole thing collapsed, right? So where do the barbarians come from? We know that Islamic Spain became a thing. Islamic Spain became a thing. And where did that come from? Well, it came from the Huns, right? So what did the Huns do? They were having wars with the Romans and Arthur at the time in Gaul, in France, and Arthur won, and he had control of Britain and France, and ended up controlling quite a bit of the Roman Empire for a small section. But it was his father Magnus Maximus who was actually the one running the empire. So Arthur was his general, right? So you will have heard of Magnus Maximus kill Gratian, etc. Well, it's Arthur who's his general doing the fighting. So these barbarians, who were Huns and Vandals, Visigoths, they moved into Spain and then south over the Pillars of Hercules, and they took over the north part of Africa, which was part of the Roman Empire. So think about it. As the Roman Empire has apparently fallen, more Huns have taken over the north of Africa. So whilst Attila the Hun is taken over, so as you can see on this map, as Attila the Hun is taken over all these bits at the top, you've got more Huns taken over north of Africa. But you're saying that's not an empire.
Well, it's also a question of, is north of Africa controlled by the Huns, or the Huns controlled by the north of? Is Carthage controlling? I mean, at this point, because Numidia and the
that's where
Mauritanians have a confederacy.
was made. So Carthage was made as the capital after this. So they jumped over the Pillars of Hercules, took over these areas.
More than Rome.
So the connection there is obviously Tartarians, barbarians, and as you will have heard,
they have elephants. They love the elephants. That's the other thing.
But the thing is, I heard David saying to you about the Tatar has had the R added. Tatarian, right?
Well, so what the deal is with like it's hard to like in Persian, there's no R exactly. It's like a hyphen kind of thing, like a kind of Persian script. There's like the R sound is more of this like hyphen thing. So it's Tataria kind of a thing. And you don't really use R's. It's kind of the way there's no K and there's an H.
Yeah. So, if you do the same thing though to barbarian, it's Barbarian, isn't it? It's quite literally Barbarians.
Right, but that's also because in Aryan is Sanskrit for nobleman, so it has to do with the noble lands or something like that.
But
and what does noble
it goes back to all those parts of the empire, because if you look at Attila the Hun, what was his empire? It's made of Bulgars, it's made of etc. So the Bulgarians, the Hungarians. I mean, they just had big dicks, but that's just the way it works. Is that these are all parts of the Aryan group.
I got another one for you. Alien. So the word alien itself, like as in a foreigner, has to do with Tartarian as well. It has to do with the Aryan. So the idea that anybody who's an alien, is an illegal Aryan, has to do with being a Tartarian, not being a member of the naval powers that have taken over the port cities that were Tartarian port cities all over the place.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I get you. So, I mean, the typical, what we think of as an Aryan, though, with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, that might be like a bait and switch. It might be the opposite. You know what I mean? So
that's what the Germans found out, and they were really kind of bummed about when they got to Tibet. They're like, wait a second. We shouldn't tell him. We shouldn't tell him. He's going to be pissed when he finds out.
Well, that's the thing. But even going with that, right? So you've heard of the tribes of Dan, the Danites. So the tribes of Dan are supposedly landed in Ireland and stuff. Well, if you go to Tartarian maps, you'll see that the Danites are supposed to be tribes of Israel. They're from Siberia, and they get expelled from, well, not Siberia, it's more Mongolia, but you know the map shown, but they're from Russia and Mongolia. They get expelled and they sail to like these areas. So when you see Viking attacks on
Phoenician ports like Tripoli.
These Viking attacks on Britain. Yeah, Viking attacks on Britain are probably Tartarian attacks on Britain, but the Danites, like these blonde-haired, blue-eyed. Well, I mean, who says they are?
Or the Rus. Well, the Rus is also Rus Vikings, or these redheads. Oh, come on. And so that's another fun one we found is Danes, Germans, and Rus, the Danger Rus kind of connection there.
Oh, yeah.
I sent a link in chat. I think I wanted to bring it up for some time, but I think now it relates to Tartarian or these guys. Maybe Luke knew no more about it.
This thing or the one before it?
This one, yeah.
Oh, I mean, the Grand Canyon thing won't open. Meaning for the folk goddess Danu, Tuath de Danann, also known by the earlier name Tuath De, tribe of the gods. are a supernatural race in Irish mythology. Many of them are thought to be representatives of deities of pre-Christian Gaelic Ireland. See, this is the idea of there being kind of para-human superhumans.
Well, this is the thing, right? So let's go with the idea, just the crazy idea that the tribes of Israel might have been the Nephilim.
Okay,
right?
Sure. Yeah, and everybody wants to be a member, of course.
Right. No, well, this thing, they might have been the original giant Nephilim. They've left wherever, they've gone to wherever, but the point is wherever we follow this trail, we find super tall giants, like, ginger giants. You go to North America, you get to these tribes of Native Americans. Like, oh yeah, there's some Welsh-speaking ginger giants over there. You're like, why? They're fucking everywhere. Right?
If the whole Earth is a snow globe for thousands of years from pole shifts, anthropological extrapolations about Hyperborean can be made. I mean, yes, can and can't, but yeah, it can in a certain respect.
Like, look up Welsh-speaking ginger giants, see if it comes up in North America.
Yeah, well, there's definitely. So we were just earlier before you got in here, we're talking about American giants. There was a guy who had a museum, and the Smithsonian also, we didn't bring it up, but they had a museum of giants. They had a bunch of artifacts of giants that were stolen.
Well, Michael Tellinger he'll point and say they've got a fucking full size one, haven't they, in the Ecuador Museum or something?
Right, yeah, and then in Ecuador, there's the Valley of Giants. The jungle has the Valley of Giants, and there are all sorts in Bolivia of 6 and 7 foot skeletons, but a lot of this stuff is supposed to be 10 foot, 20 foot. Some people are trying to say that there was a point when there's 100 like whale sized skeletons. How tall are you talking about? You're talking about Nephilim that are under 20 feet, right? So like 14.
I'm talking like not even that big. I'm talking just like it maybe 8, 9, 10 feet.
Yeah. So I mean, this is right along the lines of, you look at did George Bush Sr. have 2 sets of molars like the giants? That's what I always wanted to do.
Well, this thing, right? So when you look at Welsh folklore, they'll tell you that Britain itself was inhabited by giants beforehand. In Britain, we've got something called the Giant's Causeway, which is actually in Northern Ireland, but it's a natural wonder that is definitely not natural. If you want to look at the Giant's Causeway, you can see this. Nobody knows how it was done.
Isn't it basalt or something?
Look at this, right? No, it's, like get the picture so you can see the actual rocks over in the far corner.
The basalt growth.
Yeah. So the way that this has been set up is absolutely nuts. Like, it's over a huge period. Now, if you go, we had a £2 coin in Britain that literally says "standing on the shoulders of giants." Now, Britain is supposed to be the body of Albion the giant. It's supposed to be built by giants, and it's like this kind of underlying.
This is one of those things where it's like people will say, okay, science and nature can make things happen, which is true, but it's amazing it does, and it does it here, where there's these freaking druids. I mean, it makes me wonder a lot about why this happens. I also think about, as time goes on, technology, you're gonna have Siri with like secret passwords in order to get it to access, and so very soon you're gonna have a world where no one will see computers, but the people who know the secret passwords will know the magic words to get the world to do what it wants for them. So we're going into a world where technology and magic and science and geology are all going to be kind of intertwined. What do you think this is useful for? Like, why is it important? Why is it such a resonant place? Why is it such a magical, high energy place?
Well, I mean, that's a broad question. I think, especially in this community, we like to assume that we're very centered. Like there's if there is some kind of mystical forces going on, like it's only happening here. How do we know we're special? How do we know we're not just one tiny experiment on a giant plethora of giant universes and stuff like that? So I think. I mean, I don't know your feelings on it, especially when it comes to like flat Earth. Like, I'm always someone that likes to go more complex. Sure, I'd love to be wrong, but I'd like things to be, beyond my understanding. Like, so I don't like to turn back things and say we're in some kind of small
turtle
petri dish being watched. Yeah, like something where we're being small and watched and controlled in this kind of like minute kind of configuration, as opposed to this vast world of possibilities where we're only just evolving into this kind of like, how do we know we're not in God training camp, you know, going through millions of variations of life to teach us to be good people, and then we'll emerge at the end as one life form. Like, holy fuck.
But also, I don't see any of these scenarios being mutually exclusive either. So you said it's like small, controlled, and watched. Well, at least within the UN grid, it obviously is. But
Well,
that
yeah.
doesn't mean we aren't in an infinite parallel reality universe, and there is probably
On
a pretty
cassette
big,
tape.
a pretty big plane. And then who knows? I'm pretty sure there would be portals to other planes or planets, however you want to call them. I mean, sure, yeah.
Our whole reality could literally just be a Mobius strip on a cassette tape, if you think about it, because all of reality could just be the super flat, multi-dimensional holographic universe that feels like it's on one side that goes forever, and it's just you're moving along the surface, but you're never actually changing sides, but you feel like you're changing sides, and you actually get to be on both sides because of the fact that it's a Mobius strip.
I
mean,
don't
it
know
might
if
be an
DMT
infinite plane.
trips count, but like the entities told me that we live in a hypersphere, whatever, you know.
Now you got my attention. No, I was going to say, it seems like at some level there's how would we put it? Because what you just said a second ago, ancient historia, I don't know your actual name, was Luke. All right, what up? A very Teilhard de Chardin's idea. I can't even pronounce his fucking name. Where it's the Legos becoming sentient. I mean, it's like Lego movie or whatever the fuck, where it's like, holy shit, we're in the thing. And what we don't like, that's actually, that colorful one was a good example of like the onioning effect, where maybe hyperdimensional realities, I think I saw it in something called Flatlanders once, where it's like the way they'll interact might be fundamentally different than what we would expect. So those basalt kind of things might, I mean, this is not what I believe, but hey, why not play with ideas? It could be this interjection point of another dimension that manifests in a very practical, quote unquote, way in our world, but has much more deeper, deeper magic, as Narnia would say, going on behind the fucking scenes. It's trippy. But what did you say about the DMT thing? What did they tell you? It's a hypersphere?
Yeah, well, like the way it got explained to me was like I saw a Rubik's Cube, and like they showed me living on like the Rubik's Cube, and then they twisted the cube inside, but I was like still living on that front, but from the outside it just looks like a cube. And they were trying to say, like, to you, a human, your planet just looks round, but to us it's like a Rubik's Cube with chambers and sections.
I'm down with that. Yeah,
you guys have seen this, right, where how to turn a sphere inside out. And it shows kind of the idea of if you were to slice a sphere, and then I think this is the one right here. Let's see if it'll do it. These are the different ways it can fold. But there's a video. Let me see if I can find the one. Turn a sphere inside out. I think this is it. Okay. Can't fold a sphere, but if you were to do, where is it? There we go. This is it. You have to crease it, fold it in, up, twist around, and then go back around. And so that's a way of folding a sphere without creasing it, apparently.
Well, the way I see it is like, I don't know about you guys, but do you believe in any kind of higher existence?
Yeah, so like I believe in the sort of Pac-Man thing I was looking at a second ago, this idea that like Flatland, was what Jim said, that there's a flatland and then there's a second stack of awareness. I kind of believe in this 10 dimensionality awareness spectrum. So you've seen the 10 dimensions explained, maybe? Have you seen that video?
Yeah. Well, as in, like,
so there's a point and there's infinite points that are connected.
Well, that's the thing is, so if you like kind of believe in that, then what you gotta understand is that the current world you live in is that. So you only witness those 3 dimensions, but that doesn't mean that the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th aren't there.
You might not witness them at all. You might just have awareness that they exist. So the other thing is that you're basically a single cell sea amoeba on the floor that has one sense of touch in order to eat the feces of other life. We're so primitive in terms of how this works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a brilliant way to think of it. I was just thinking of these exactly these blind fucking little things, like trying to. And to them, like, all they can see is like light or shadow, for example, and that's life for them. So,
well, I mean, they're still pretty.
The OG Plato's Cave is the
pretty cool
floor.
Yeah, But what it can do is it's like, so it, you know, it feels for feces to eat, it touches, right? And it's touching in different ways. And it's trying to essentially invent a new way of touching matter that will, particulates that will kind of resemble a smell receptor, right? And so we've got this too. We have a thing that uses that same touch receptor is evolved to allow for smell. And I think evolution's a weird word because people get upset about it, but it's evolved in the sense that you've heightened it. You know, it's a heightened system of touch that is only based on touch, the same way your eyes have photonics are only based on touch. And all of that doesn't matter because you can't touch anything because of electrostatics. Like nothing is touching. So all you really have is empathy that things are being touched. So that awareness that something is being touched is so much more important than any of these senses. But those senses are still collections of ways to experience touch, right? Perturbance. So, I mean, it seems like that's why Pac-Man, he can only exist on one level, like Flatlander can only exist on one level because you can only experience in X and Y. But if you were to be 3 dimensions, you're like, hey, Pac-Man, I can see that if you go out left, you'll come out right because it's really folded in this hollow tube, right? And you can go, just trust me. I have a higher awareness than you. Let me control your body and I will give you greater understanding. I mean, that is kind of similar to what a lot of the mystics have tried to do when they talk to spirits. Of course, I think it's probably pretty dangerous because, you know, how many times is Pac-Man game over in the hands of a child? And then like, there's probably somebody just wants to watch Pac-Man die also.
I think as well, though, one kind of difference in this is even when people say things like God is outside of the universe, we have an intrinsic ability to imagine that quite literally means he's somewhere on the outside of a giant dome or something. But we're forgetting that what that literally means is he's outside of the universe. That doesn't mean he's out there. It means he's out here and there and everywhere. And
he's
it's
outside
like,
the parameters of what we're experiencing.
Yeah. So like even when you look
also
at Pac-Man,
outside the parameters.
Yeah. So even with Pac-Man though, you're observing from above. You know, you're not observing from within. And that's
but in the times. So Tron's about Christ, right? Obviously. So Tron, you've got Tron the Baptist, and there's a lot of aspects to it. Like they have to get washed over and purified in like the ether, in is kind of this river that flows. But you've got so many levels to it, and when he gets into it, he actually experiences what it's like to be incarnate as a program, right? So he gets to the user instead of the creator, they like to call it, because that also differentiates in the Goetia this idea that demons are gods necessarily. They might not be. They might just be like at a higher function because they have a higher awareness of what's going on. But it's still amazing, the lives of these programs. It's just that they're dedicated to their functions. That's all that they can do. They're stuck inside of that, but they're really good at that, but they're stuck in there.
That brings up a point. 2 things. I just recently watched Tron Legacy or whatever with my Nana, and she was like, not about it for a minute. And then I was like, look, how do you kind of pull in the Bible stuff? It's like, look, it's circles within circles, bitch. Chill.
Dude, it's all about bringing Lucifer up to the world and showing her the sun. But yeah, keep going.
It's an interesting, trippy movie.
Very Saturnian.
It's weird because I'm reading this book, not that I really care. When I was in Switzerland back in 2017, I read this good book if you want to take kind of Judeo-Christianity interpretations of Genesis well enough, called The Lost World of Adam and Eve, and it gets into some ideas about teleology, which is getting into the idea that there's whether Adam and Eve might not be real. I mean, I don't care about it right now. I'm not tripping on this, but I'm doing it with Nana, right? So I'm like, hey, well, I'll break your skull, but we'll do it on your terms. So basically, it's like Adam and Eve aren't there. The whole thing
teleology, the study origins,
of what
from a seed to a tree, right? Like the study of how things progress.
Teleology just implies purpose. I mean, dysteleological kind of opinions are like, oh, look, we live in a purposeless universe and you're just an automaton in the fucking soup of chaos, and good luck with that. And that's never sat well with me. Luke was asking, basically our opinions of our beliefs on reality, like are there higher ups or whatever. It's like, how could there not be? It seems pretty, albeit disorganized to my understanding of things, it's functioning. That's the whole point of Genesis. It's talking about order functions, and it's actually really drawing on a lot of Near Eastern cultures where they're like, it's not talking about material origins. Let's put it that way. It's not like, look, here's a Sandman and magic abracadabra, there's Adam and now he's got a rib, and there's Eve. It's talking more about like functions, as in like ontological functioning. Kind of like if you have a fucking store full of computers or an arcade like Tron Legacy full of arcades, but it's not powered in, you have the material origins, you have the material, but you don't have a functioning system or whatever. And there's a fundamental difference between the two, because you can have stuff that exists, but if it's not kind of working in an ordered way, it's who the fuck cares, basically. You only care about your fucking Apple Card when it's loaded and working. You don't care about it, the plastic, where was it made, that kind of thing. Anyway, I digress. It's just funny you're bringing up Tron, because I was like, this shit, I work out to this music. I trip to this soundtrack. Daft Punk's my jam. And it's really ironic, Andreas, because earlier I kept saying touch, like, goddamn, it was,
touch.
Touch. Exactly. Sweet touch. You almost convinced me I'm real. Reality's an illusion, albeit a perspective one, right? So it's real shit. Like, we're having fun in a hologram, I guess.
Andreas, did you ever, or did we ever bring up Cyberpunk Edge Runners? I just want to bring it up because it's such a cool anime. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, and it may, I mean, it's the other side of the thing, but it was surprising because you would think, oh, it's about cyberware and so on, but it's actually pretty dystopic, and it's almost hard to watch. It's very beautifully made, I think, really great. But it's actually like, how would you say, after watching this, I don't want any cyberware installed, So it's interesting how that works,
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, we're getting to the point where glasses, like I'm wearing glasses, that's clearly not natural tech. It's technically, I'm not a cyborg, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, you are.
It's like, it's
anybody who eats vitamins is a cyborg.
It gets tricky. Definitions get really dicey. This is the whole.
No, it doesn't.
How do we because I've been binging. Luke might appreciate it because he's British. Warhammer 40K stuff.
Oh, there we go.
You don't want to be. You don't want to be a fucking
racism just to start the evening off. Yeah, thanks, mate.
So I don't know about all that. It's hyper craziness. Let's put it that way.
I wanted to bring this up before. Where's the guy who's doing it? What's his name? Because I met him one time and I forget every time. The dude who's like he was on that TV show and he quit to make Warhammer.
Oh, the Superman guy. Yeah, no, it's coming out. They're pushing
Superman. What's
Look,
his name?
I will admit I used to paint Warhammer many years ago, but not anymore. All right.
Hey, everyone's got to do something. I'm not even into the toys. I'm reading the fucking Horus Heresy and stuff. I'm like, this is
they're not toys, mate. They're random models, all right.
Yeah,
random action figures. We were talking about He-Man earlier. All right, I
one time, right? Kids
I went to see my buddy won. My buddy won that was on that show Survivor and won the Survivor, and then we saw in 2010, I think it was 2011, the movie Hannah in like the premiere, whatever, with him. And when we went with this guy Henry Cavill, and so that I met this guy. I was like, whoa, he's cool, but I didn't know like for years that he'd been in all. He wasn't in those things yet at the time, 2010. I think he'd just been in like some TV British Tudors or kind of something like that. He did something else, but he was cool and he was a nerd and everything like that. Anyway, now he's in the process of basically he was disgusted with Hollywood. Yeah. He's tired of all this other stuff. And he's like, all right, look, the only thing that kept me going for all those years is like my Warhammer. I'm going to make Warhammer. I'm going to bring Warhammer to the people because it saved my life. And when I do it, I'm going to make sure it's not destroyed, because I've seen so many projects now after moving to LA and seeing how Hollywood works. I'm like, the one thing I'm going to promise you is that I'm not going to let you down. I'm not going to let Warhammer get destroyed. And the way he said it wasn't just like, I'm selling it. It's like, I'm going to war with the system to get this made, which is very Guillermo del Toro. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? And of course, what the heck is Warhammer about? Is it a hammer?
Not down. I'm curious why you're not, because it is xenophobic at a level. I get that, but it's the hyperest satire possible.
No, I'm just sat here looking at Henry Cavill thinking, if I was gay.
Yeah.
Isn't this guy the guy from
The
Witcher?
He's an actor, that's fine.
Yeah,
isn't he the guy from The Witcher?
Yeah, it's not even about the acting. It's just so wholesome, man. Look at him paint that model with his muscles, like us.
That if you were gay, you would love Henry Cavill. I see.
Yeah,
that's. I thought you were saying if I was gay, I'd be making models with Henry Cavill, which is also probably true because
Well, I mean, if we were together, that's probably like a great way to bond. But,
no, I bet he's married too. That's the funny thing. Can you imagine his wife is like in the other room in this giant bed, and he's like, "I'm coming. Just let me finish I'm painting my Warhammer models
as well."
He's like
10 out of 10 model, and he's like fucking gluing this.
I'm not quite done with the level 6. I have to finish painting. I mean, but if we were to go into xenophobia, that's interesting. Give me like a really like red pill me and tell me be critical, and you're telling me about Warhammer. What's the story?
That's such a fucking That's a trip. You can't. This is what I was like, bro. We can't do that. I mean, that's like asking like, what's the Shire? And it's like that's tucked into a whole universe.
I'm in the Shire right
crazy.
now.
I don't know. It depends on where you want to start. Like,
start with the Inquisition or something. I read
they've got
something
that
about
stuff,
Inquisition.
yeah.
I know. That's why I'm saying.
It's like how would I put it? It did save my life because I went through this horrible breakup with a fiance who was actually from Stoke-on-Trent. I hadn't met her, but got dumped. That sucked. And then I got really nihilistic and I started reading little short stories on Reddit about this stuff for some reason. I don't know. And I was just like, oh shit, there's something to this. And I have to say, I don't give a shit about hypermasculinity or war particularly. It's basically everything that humans could do, every genre of kind of being to 11. It's nuts. The stories are crazy. It's not something you can really crack like that. It's like talking about like, I don't know, human origins. It's like, where do you even begin?
Well, so what's the 40K part?
That's a point in history where the literature, you have to realize this. It's really funny that we're talking about He-Man and all these toys, because it was a lot like that, where they're like, look, we've got this game, because I guess there's Warhammer, the original, which I had pewter little dudes of in middle school and painted some dwarves and didn't give a fuck about it after, a week or something. But you got these tabletop gaming things, right? It's like Risk with like fucking army men. And these little dudes, I guess, which I have never fucked with, but I can appreciate, the artistry or whatever. As far as, impulsive, childish, whatever, masculine machismo weirdness goes. I mean, I guess that's a Hun right there, kids. There he is, or whatever, right? It's like that. He's a Celt or whatever. These myths. I mean, they told these stories back in the day. It just didn't have
making me want to paint it right now.
Go for it. Shit, that takes skill. I mean, these are good motor skills practice. I don't even think I could fuck with that. But anyway, the whole point is, back in the day, I guess they had this thing called White Dwarf, which is a magazine, which it was kind of like, Dungeons and Dragons and shit was popping, and they were pushing this stuff. And basically they had this, it's like chess on crack. And they were like, look, well, we've got like, good guys and bad guys basically. And somebody just put a little insert saying there was this guy named Horus and it's this Luciferian kind of fall, whatever you want to take that as, the archetype of like falling from grace, the Emperor's chosen dude. Long story short, when you're asking what is 40K is the future, technically the present in their thing. It's our universe, but basically AI, which we were kind of saying, holy shit, what's going on with all this AI stuff? AI started happening about our timeline, they think. I mean, this is kind of all whatever. And then it was Mad Max as fuck for a long time, nuclear war. And this, I guess, gestalt spiritual being of shaman souls shoved together became this Napoleon-esque dude who unites the world, creates a fucking Enlightenment era reason only there is not God thing. So that's
just to be clear, the AI is in the prehistory actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
this is like
the same, just to
like
make sure and to let everybody know, it's the same in Dune with the Butlerian.
This is very Dune-ish.
Jihad, jihad against the AI. Not gonna say anything more.
I mean, this is just too much to get into. But anyway, the novels I'm reading are called the Horus Heresy. That's in 30K. When basically there's so many levels. I can't even. It's where do you start? There's actually chaos gods, right? Which might be Jungian kind of projections of the collective unconscious in the Imperium or the Warp, which is a parallel reality, affecting us, but mostly kind of driven by the first murder creates corn or whatever. This blood for the blood god kind of vengeance dude. And I guess the Black Plague might have created, these are just general paintings of the idea, Nurgle, who's like decay and entropy and rot and death and stuff. So they've got, that's actually one of the Primarchs. So you got me going all over the place. Anyway, long story short, the world's
I'm glad you said Nurgle.
That's Nurgle. There he is.
And then
Nurgle.
She's like, I don't like you, Nurgle.
Yeah, she's like, nah, not into it. That might be either. Who knows? This is too much of a rabbit hole. We'll have to geek out on this on Team Rabbit Hole at some point, because it's just too much. It's like how do you talk about Disney? Or be like, where do you start? Mowgli or fucking
this is the opener.
Yeah,
okay.
It's ridiculous. But
right around the park.
I guess the point would be, it's set in our timeline. It's not like some galaxy far, far away. What happens is, shit gets out of hand, but then this kind of divine being who's supposed to be super psychic, all this kind of stuff, unites people, says there's no God. I mean, it's really kind of hitting on all the greatest hits of humanity in this weird convoluted way. Anyway, he kind of unites the world after Old Night, which is when shit went to shit, spiritually speaking, like basically chaos kind of took over. It recedes, I'm kind of guesstimating some of this because I'm not like a lore expert. And he kind of starts going. He started genetically fucking with himself, taking himself and begetting gene seed experiments. Like clones kind of thing. Not clones exactly, but like offspring from aspects of himself. That creates 20 Primarchs. They get taken by the Chaos Gods. He goes and finds them on this hunt, gets them. That's the Primarchs like. I don't even know the main He-Man, and then everything's after them. That's totally different game. Warhammer. That's like the fantasy realm. Not that one's more sci-fi. That's an Ultramarine. It's too much.
There's a lot of transhumanism and artificial
completely. That's why I even brought it up.
the
It's like you
future,
don't want to go down this rabbit hole with transhumanism because they're not about AI, but they do use tech and they don't really know what they're doing. And that
But some
that's the only
personalities
reason I
are
mentioned
probably
Warhammer,
built by
'cause-
AI. That's the
'cause I
thing.
said, you don't want to
once
be a
you're-
servitor.
AI doesn't exist really, is the thing, because everything
does.
is everything is intelligence. So at a certain point, you just install that on a person, and then that becomes their mind, and then that
AI is
would
the
be
thing.
Aren't we technically AI if we're
That's
in a
kinda what I thought.
simulation?
That's a level, right? I mean,
Yeah.
our
Or at
weapons
very
are
least-
hard.
even
Aren't-
before I was into like all this proper conspiracy stuff, like simulation theory used to always stump me because I was very logical. So when it came to simulation theory, just as simple as like that whole, well, if one person in the whole universe can simulate a universe, then one person in that universe will simulate a
Infinite
universe.
regression
And then,
stuffs.
yeah, it is infinity to one that you're in the real universe. And I was like, well, okay. And then the more that I've learned about life, the more it's reinforced that fear. And every time I come back to like, oh shit, I'm not real.
Well,
You
real
know?
and true. You're having a true experience it's real to you.
Well, I mean, everything is, leads to people experiencing it. So isn't that enough? Like whether or not something happens, it's kind of funny. Like people used to ask whether or not September 11th happens. Like, does it matter? Didn't Iraq happen afterwards? Isn't that more important? And it's kind of like the killing people argument. Like David Brin's got this book about AI, but it's really more about cloning, but it's all about this idea really of democracy. Because if you have the ability to stack personalities and make duplicates of personalities, and those personalities are allowed to vote, then wouldn't you just make as many people as possible? And so wouldn't it become like Bitcoin? Like you just try to generate as many votes as possible by
That's
generating
empire building. That's what it was, dude.
And
Back in the day, like, let's
isn't that
have a bunch
exactly
of
what?
kids, and
Isn't
they're your
that the
friends.
Holy Roman Empire? Well done.
Or just Europe or European history. It seems we go through iterations of consciousness. And I'm not even saying it's good because you could get into yugas and stuff like Kali
These guys
Yuga.
could all be named Muhammad. That's fair. I hear your point.
Or John from Midlands or whatever. It's like,
Fine,
yeah,
I
sure.
won't
Or,
plant your point for you. Okay.
it's a trip. And I think if we can hold on loosely enough, we'll appreciate it. But Luke, to your point, I mean, especially if you're doing, DMT and stuff and talking to the beings or whatever, we clearly don't know what the fuck is going on. But then we have to wonder, are those aspects of ourselves? Is that a higher level, are those the zookeepers and we're the zoo E's or whatever the main
Well,
attraction?
yeah, speaking of that, there's one thing I can tell you about DMT is that there's definitely something in control. There's something there that's orchestrating it all. It's on like, have you guys done it? Or...
Yeah, I've talked about it too much. Raphael's sick of my stories.
Have you ever been experienced? I think is what Jim Morrison, Jim
Like,
Hendricks
well, that's
said.
the thing.
Break
So
on
when
through to the other side.
when I first did DMT, it was like what I expected, meet like Gaia, give me a new soul, a lot of ayahuasca kind of type stuff. Then like I had my first breakthrough and that was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Then I had like the next breakthrough and I was like, oh, okay, it's getting a little scary now. And then I had an experience a few months ago that was, I can't even describe it. And I couldn't touch the stuff after that for a good month and a half, 2 months.
Scared Straight by DMT.
Oh yeah, dude, that's things. I was getting cocky, and I went in one day, and they were like, "We heard the shit you've been talking about us," and they slapped me about, And I came back from that just a different person. I was terrified of it, and then I did it again recently, and they just took me straight back there. It was like, like I hadn't even. There was no break. They were just like, "Oh, welcome back. Come straight into the chaos room." I was just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing is at a certain point they're annoyed. They're like, dude, we told you already. And like, I don't know if you're welcome here anymore kind of thing, And that's
I don't want
funny.
you to like grind like a Warcraft.
They start locking the temple doors,
No, but
or
then
they start scaring you.
Let's get a little bit concrete because I mean, I appreciate all these stories, sometimes interesting, sometimes scary. I've actually heard, or the way I would describe it, of course, not recommended. You got to do your own due diligence. And I guess technically the substance is not, well, exactly. At least they don't sell it in stores, let's say.
The Libra covering the faces.
But yeah,
Salvia is
but,
out there.
but the
Salvia's at gas stations and shit. It's like, what the actual fuck? Anyway,
so yeah, the point being, is, you know, what are the layers of the thing, and what is the feeling that you actually bring back? There was someone in chat actually commenting about it, and so I'm like, what is the practical usage? Because the one thing, of course, I think I never had an entity like talk to me like that, although I've seen different things, and the most interesting thing was actually pretty, you know, because there's variants of it as well, as you may know. There is something called 5-MeO-DMT, which is derives of a frog poison, which actually is, at least from what I could appreciate, much more potent. And there it actually throws many people directly into a void space, which means there is not even any information anymore that it's giving you, because otherwise with DMT experiences, many people have like downloads and something that's really important to them. They can see if they are well prepared, if they know what they're doing, if they approach it with some degree of humility or self-respect, let's say. But then there's this void space. And for me, the question is, what is the idea that you actually bring back apart from information? I want to ask you, Luke, what would you say is the basic feeling or the basic understanding?
Well, that's really tough. So like when I first did it, so before I did it, I was quite a bad alcoholic. Like I'd been for quite a while, and my dad had died earlier last year. So I was going through quite a tough time. And when I first did it, you know, I was a complete novice, and I remember I did it with a bong, which was ridiculous. But the only message I took away from that was, you need to stop drinking before you do this again. And I was like, okay. And I literally just stopped, just like straight up stopped like that night. And then when I did it again, like I say, it started off dead slow, and it was like I was on a journey, like I was on a spiritual journey, trying to, you know, find something out. And then it just went to this like nutcase level where I feel like the lessons that it's trying to teach me are beyond my comprehension in this realm. It's like, you know, it's that fourth dimension. You can't comprehend the fourth dimension. So the stuff that it's like a dream in that way, you know, you're not supposed to bring that stuff back. But one thing I will say is that the more I've done it, the more I've been able to bring stuff back, the more I've stayed conscious. So like, I notice a lot of my friends that do DMT, they'll take it, they'll close their eyes, and that you know, they're out, they come back, they don't know what's happened. Whereas I'm awake through the whole thing.
They don't know what's happened. They pass out, really. Wow.
You know, they close their eyes, and then like they come back and they've got like little memories, and like, oh, I kind of remember this, I kind of remember this happening. And then like, whereas with me, it's like, it's fully, I'm awake, I'm sat here in the world, you know, objects are dancing around and everything is going fully fucking insane. My body is dissolving into nothing in front of me, and I'm becoming like a black hole, you know, and that kind of like level of, whoa, what the fuck? I feel like that is something to do with your pineal gland and how your ability to maintain your consciousness during these events. Now that's when it becomes dangerous, because you can move around, you know what I mean? Like if you're too capable, it's like a sleepwalk, you know, you can be moving around thinking that you're just tripping, but you're actually about to fall down the stairs or something, you know? And I feel like that's the kind of the realm that I'm in at the moment, is this where it's integrating, like the stuff that's happening in the trip is happening in the real world to me. And that's like a whole level of comprehension you have to go over, because you have to like debate, is this real that I'm experiencing, or is this just a drug, or am I experiencing something that I shouldn't be experiencing? Because you can go into the whole realm of like double slit experiment, life knows it's being observed, you know. So just by taking that DMT, your brain waves, your cortical waves and delta waves start behaving differently. Does the world around you now not understand that you're observing it? Does it behave differently because you're not technically supposed to be here, you know?
I've never heard that interpretation, and that is fire most. I mean, it's a little material reductionistic, but I dig it. It's like, oh shit, you broke through, and
well, yeah, exactly. You're seeing the world, but the world doesn't know you're seeing.
I'm a particle now, not a wave. Holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, fully. I feel like that has something to do with it, that you are experiencing something. And so like you should be like, because people always say, oh, the good thing about DMT is if you're having a bad trip, you can just open your eyes. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? There is no getting away from DMT. That fucking thing, it will chase you. It will pull you in. You can't, you know. So it's weird. I wonder if there's like, it comes into like NPC theory. You know, I wonder if there's some people that just will never experience that level.
I was about to say that about your friends, but I didn't want to sound like terribly
your friends
asshole.
NPCs,
I was like, hey, you got to have an imagination to.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it relates to dreams, because I've been one of those people that really remembers dreams, has really active dreams, and as well, like I had one of those Apple Watches that tells you about your sleep, and it used to tell me I was in REM sleep for like the whole night, and I wake up really tired, and because I've just been dreaming the whole fucking night. And it's the same thing. I wonder if that is the link, is that it's, you know, your pineal gland, and the more, because that's another thing, right? So within that 3 months when I didn't take it, I was meditating loads. So when I thought like, you know, I'm going to take it now and I'll be ready, it was worse. It was like, because I've been meditating, my pineal gland had got stronger, you know, and my visit, like all my meditation had got better. So the DNC hit me harder, and it was like, oh,
you gotta try doing more Kundalini yoga. Do the 3 a.m. Kundalini breath of fire works. You can probably find a group in your area in Manchester.
That's the thing, bro. Hey, I do that, and I guarantee you'll take DMT and it'll hit you even harder. And you'll just be like,
yeah, but if you're really good at, so that's the point, is if you're really good at handling it. So like if you get anxiety from hyperventilation, if you can't handle doing Kundalini, then you really shouldn't be messing around with this stuff. And that's the lesson I learned as a kid, because I was thinking, oh man, you know, I'm younger, so I must be healthier than these like 70-year-old gurus that wait till they can experience bhakti. And I realized, oh no, my mind is not ready to go to that place, and it's super dangerous to put your mind into that place if you haven't prepared. And that's why it often takes decades and decades and decades. Now, some people can skip 20 years of bhakti by doing Kundalini in 2 years. It's been done. It's dangerous. You can experience pseudo-death. You can have complete ungrounding. There's
astral projection.
Astral projection to the point where you get outside of your body and can't get back in, and somebody else is in your body when you get there, and you're like, dude, it's like a California rental. You can't kick them out, you know? So
now I'm the NPC watching my meat suit. Oh, God damn it.
Yeah, so you got to be careful. On that black pill of a note, I have to go help my dad. And I also have to start the next show. But can we do it again soon? And Luke, it's a fantastic thing that you came, and I'm going to show them where they can get your content. And
thank you.
We're going to get you on Team Rabbit Hole, Luke. Get ready.
That's
the
next thing. So this is merging.
Honestly, absolute pleasure, Raphael. Thank you.
I'm doing my best to just force Jim into like merging. Let's do Team Rabbit Holes on YouTube, swapcasting.
You be particle, I'll be wave.
All right, cool. TeamRabbitHole.com, one of the most important places in the world, and it's a meta place that exists everywhere at once. It's a
You muted yourself, Andreas.
It's a slit experiment.
He did it.
It took too much, kids.
It's whatever you want it to be.
Anyway, he's got to go deal with his dad.
Yeah.
It's the place to find the others.
Weird audio situation.
So I'll just keep moderating. So this is Team Rabbit Hole, and you can switch over to Luke's channel, Ancient Historia. Thank you for coming on, Luke.
Thank you very much for having me.
Plan for this. Okay.
Yeah, Luke, we're hanging out. I'm ever in England, FYI.
Oh, look at that beautiful logo, everybody. Okay. Also, Ancient Historia, Luke's channel. It's growing really fast. I just subscribed. I didn't subscribe yet. Now I did. I'm going to 1 billion of these videos now, because like you've got like 20 new videos that I haven't seen yet, so I'm going to watch them all. This is great in the last 2 months, because the thing is I work a lot on my own videos, and then stuff's been happening in my life, so I've missed some of this stuff, but this is great. So I'll be watching all of these.
Oh, no, mate, it's just cool to be here, because I was, you know, a few months ago I was sat here just watching you. Now I'm here.
I'm going to send you also, you probably already seen my King Arthur video, but I'm going to watch all of your King Arthur stuff. Let's do a whole thing just talking about British history. This is great.
So what is it now? Started from the bottom, now we're here, or started from the top and now we're here?
Started as above, so below. Started as a Brahmin,
well,
and now we have Lakshmi
by the TV, and now I'm over here by the laptop. So
yeah.
It looks well organized. I haven't done a hard Tartaria dive. I'll check.
That's a good place to start, Jim. We're gonna get you hooked too, and then you'll see how it's the same as Weimar 40K.
Dude, Ancient Historia, I'm gonna check it out. We'll get it set up on our Discord, so whenever you post a video, it's just automatically in the Discord, so people can find your content.
Thank you so much, Andreas.
Yeah,
You are
I appreciate the content you're making, and also make sure you go to Act Like You Know 26 to watch Raphael's videos, but not just Raphael's videos. He's got Raphael plus David Ewing Jr. off the Yin Yang recently, and some David Ewing Jr. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 5, 6 This is my talk. But you got several talks with David Union Jr. that no one's heard outside of this area, out of this channel yet. This stuff is like hot, and eventually I'm going to start trying to bring it to more people's attention because, my God, this is great. I'm going to put up a David talk. Luke, you're about to put up a David talk. So a lot of interesting stuff is coming out about the Kaaba Stone, about Africa, about England.
I actually live in the same city as David, so I'm going to see if I can get him to come for a real interview.
Oh, that's winning right there. That's really cool. There you go. That's awesome. Very good. All right, guys.
Gentlemen.
But anyway,
I
I'll see you
appreciate
later.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for being here. And peace. All right, I'll play the right intro this time, or outro. Also La Vista next time. Oh, and remember, I'm going to do Wednesday Ultra in a minute after this too, because I'm crazy.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Talkarians. Recent Talkarians.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Talkarians. Recent Talkarians.